Hi, everyone. This is Raquel.
Hi, and this is Jennifer.
Welcome to Madness Cafe.
This is a feminist podcast where we talk about women's issues, politics, and health and wellness.
And where those issues intersect. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Madness Cafe. Today, it's just me and Jennifer, and we are going to tackle the topic of white women's tears. And if this is a new topic for you, I have two definitions. I didn't make these definitions up, but they, in my opinion, are spot on. The first one is from a writer named Luvvie Ajayi, and she has a blog called Awesomely Luvvie, and she's written a bunch of books and stuff. She's amazing. But anyway, so her definition is: a white woman feels challenged or uncomfortable about something a Black person said or did. Instead of using her words, she cries. Instantly, no matter what the initial catalyst of the situation is, she ends up being appeased, pacified, and pampered. Second definition, which brings in the part that the P that I would add to Luvvie's part or definition, is protected, but we're going to get there. This definition is by Alexandria Bennett, who writes on Medium. And she says, white women's tears refers to the common use of crying and other expressions of distress by white women as a means of weaponizing the privilege inherent in whiteness and exerting the full power of white womanhood as a class historically designated as delicate, racially superior beings in need of protection. So.
No, I do that because it's uncomfortable. It's an uncomfortable topic.
It is a very uncomfortable topic.
But
I think it's one, I think, well, yeah, we can tackle it because, it's not going to kill us. We can have hard conversations. One of the reasons why I wanted to talk about it is because I have been on the receiving end of white women's tears as a tool of manipulation, not as, oh, this person really does feel upset in this person's, but it's not that. This is not just this person is sad and expressing an emotion. No, this is when, whether knowingly or not, the tears come as a tool of manipulation to a couple of things: either make it all about them, to center the conversation on them and their feelings or their guilt or their sadness at a situation, as opposed to the person who's telling the story or the person who's
yours.
Yeah, or the person who's experiencing the oppression. Or it's used to just to shut shit down. Because I will say that in many situations where I've come across being on the receiving end of white women's tears, my response is almost always to just shut down and just like, fine, fuck, okay, fine. And that's almost literally what I say, just go, fine. And I just shut down and I'm like, I'm done. Because there's literally nowhere to go with the conversation at that point. Nowhere. And aside from that, aside from them being as a tool of manipulation in uncomfortable conversations, say maybe about race or whatever, white women's tears can be life-threatening, and they can result in someone's death. No, this is not me being dramatic or overly sensitive or hyperbolic or any of the other things. Historically, this has been true. Emmett Till, 14-year-old little boy, was visiting down south from Chicago, visiting his family down there for the summer. A white woman, a grown woman, said that Emmett Till whistled at her and she felt unsafe. So two grown ass men found him, beat him senseless, beat him to death brutally, and killed him. Yes, this happened back in the, late 50s, early 60s, but situations similar to that still happen all the time. All the time. In prepping for this, I read pieces where there was one in particular where a white woman talked about basically her best friend is a black guy. And it literally dawned on her as she was having lunch with him in a restaurant that if she started to behave in a certain way, everybody would think that he was trying to hurt her and his life would be in danger.
Mm-hmm.
This happens all the time. All the time. I didn't have to read that article to know that. Just being a woman in the world, a woman of color in the world, I've seen it. I have a brother. He's black. I have other male relatives. I have male friends, black male friends. They have to go through the world in a different way because all a white woman has to do is say something happens, and more often than not, the reaction is, oh, we need to protect this delicate flower. And then the reaction is somebody's going to get killed or hurt badly. So that is our topic for today is white women's tears and the weaponization of white women's tears. And I do have, like I said, I've been in situations many times where a conversation gets shut down that I'm just trying to have a conversation and a white woman will start to cry and be like, you're yelling at me, you're hurting my feelings. And I'm like, not yelling, didn't raise my voice. I'm just emoting and expressing an opinion strongly, but not raising my voice and definitely not threatening anyone.
How old were you the first time you experienced something like that?
Wow.
Or when did you first become aware of the danger of white women's tears?
I think the first time I became aware of it was, and I don't think I'm exaggerating, was probably from, like always. It's one of those things that it's the water you swim in. You just know. Kind of like that, the whole thing of the idea of parents of Black children have certain conversations with their children. I feel like I've always known. But for a specific situation, probably the Emmett Till situation, because I remember as a child, we had like all the magazines at home, right? Like Jet magazine and Ebony and Essence, and we had all the Black magazines at home. Whenever the anniversary of Emmett Till's death would come up, one or all of the magazines would run a piece about it. I would read it. My mom would talk to us about it. Our family would talk about it because it's part of the civil rights movement. So we just knew. It's always been something that I just knew. Yeah. And then in work situations that I've been in where you're having a conversation with somebody or you're expressing, hey, this wasn't fair to me. And this person, you're thinking you're standing up for yourself, but the person that you're talking to, a white woman, is like, oh, well, you're being very aggressive. And then I'm in trouble when I didn't really do anything, right? You see these memes and things that have been going around for probably like, I don't know, 10 years now of white women calling the cops on Black and brown people for doing nothing.
Anything, everything, nothing.
Yeah. Like for instance, the one about this was maybe, I think it was 2 days before George Floyd was murdered. And I didn't remember that. It's from like reading this, I thought I knew it was around that time. I didn't realize it was 2 days before, but I remember it happening. And I remember reacting. I was like, "Damn, that dude's lucky he didn't get killed." But it was a black man who was at a park in New York. I think he was at Central Park, and there was a he was, watching birds because the man was a bird watcher, and there was a section of the park where you had to have your dog on a leash. This white woman walks through with her dog, and she doesn't have her dog on her leash. And this man asks her, "Ma'am, can you please put a leash on your dog? This is a leash required area of the park, blah, 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 blah." Didn't touch her, didn't raise his voice. I mean, there's videotape of it. He took video of this because he's like, I'm not stupid. I'm gonna protect myself." And this woman starts, because someone dared tell her to follow a rule and asked her politely, she starts berating him and says that she's going to call the cops on him and that she feels threatened. And he's like, "I'm not even near you. What are you talking about?" And literally gets on the phone, calls the cops, and it was like, "I'm being attacked by a black man, not I'm being threatened by a man." Nope, it's always a black man. She knew what she was doing, yet she did it anyway.
Yeah, tell us how you
Because
feel about that.
because well, she knew what would happen. She knew saying the words "black man" and "threatened" were going to get her a very quick response, and she assumed it was going to result in possibly this black man being arrested. Thankfully, he was not,
Or he
but
could have been
he could
killed.
have been killed.
Mhm.
I mean, any number of things.
Yeah. But you
So,
didn't tell me how you felt about that.
really fucking pissed.
Mhm.
Really pissed. I can just imagine that had there I don't know if there was a trial, but I can imagine had there been a trial, she would have just cried her eyes out, "I'm so sorry, it's not what I meant."
Mhm.
Then why? Right? So angry, frustrated that this still continues to happen, that people act like they don't know what this is,
But they do it on purpose.
and they do it on purpose. It makes me afraid for my brother, my cousins, my uncle, my guy friends, anybody who just, whether they're in an an interracial relationship or not, they come into contact all the time
With
with
white people?
white people, and someone just on a whim could decide to just be like, "You know what? I'm gonna have a just shit day today, and I'm gonna take it out on somebody else." Or guess what? I'm gonna fuck with somebody today. It's incredibly frustrating, and it makes it feel like, when are we ever actually going to make any progress?
It's a really good question, Raquel. It really is.
It's not just in situations like that where somebody's life might be in danger. It also shuts down conversations, right? Conversations that could happen, conversations that need to happen, but they don't, because everybody jumps to the white woman's defense, whether she needs defending or not. Because A, maybe there's no attacking happening, maybe it's just a conversation. And B, maybe she can hold her own. And C, just 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 stop. Just fucking stop. It's a troubling state of affairs.
Yes, because can we say that through both of those examples, the example when it's used to deflect a conversation or a confrontation, or when the white woman's tears are actually used to hurt or kill, or in both of those situations, are white women's tears actually being used to maintain white supremacy?
Absolutely.
That
Absolutely.
that is a chilling fucking thought. But when you dissect it,
Mm-hmm.
I would say that that is a true statement.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder, as a white woman, I wonder how many white women have taken the time to really think about that tear or tears, or whether intentional or not intentional, doesn't really even matter,
Mm-hmm.
that act in a certain situation, in one of these situations we're talking about, actually helps to maintain white supremacy.
Mm-hmm.
I've never thought about that.
I dare say far too many white women have not thought about it. And maybe this is just me being pessimistic, but I would dare say that even in situations where a white woman has thought about it, maybe even had a conversation about it, but then that's the end of it. And then doesn't examine when it happens after the conversation, like, oh shit, I just did that. Hold on. Or, oh, I was about to do that. You know what? Or situations where it comes up and people who think that they are the most progressive, liberal, forward-thinking people on the planet, and then they're shutting other people down.
I actually was listening to this podcast today about this. It's called Black Like Me with Dr. Alex Gee.
Yeah, that was a really good episode.
He was talking to Dr. Robin DiAngelo about this.
Yeah, she wrote the book White Fragility, just in case
Exactly.
if anybody wants to know.
One of the most interesting things was, she said, and I've been struggling with this myself. She said, if we are white, we are racist. Just we are.
Oh, and let me point out, people, Robin DiAngelo is a white woman writing this. So before anybody is like, Robin DiAngelo is just attacking white people. Look, she herself is a white woman and she is saying these things. So attack her if you want.
Right. Well, I think she does get a lot of attacks.
She does. She does.
For her work in this. And maybe a few years ago, I would have attacked her for this. Maybe a month ago, I would have attacked her for this. I don't know. We've talked about this before. My parents raised us on purpose in a biracial neighborhood. My parents bought me white baby dolls and black baby dolls. They did that on purpose. They were actively trying to be anti-racist.
Yeah.
And what Dr. DiAngelo is saying is that even with that, my parents, myself, were still racist because of what you were saying a minute ago, Raquel, about if we're swimming in the water, we're still a fish, right? The culture is still the culture. I was thinking, patting myself on the back, thinking, I'm a feminist and I'm for equal rights, and I certainly would never want to hurt anyone. And I'm a nice person. She talked about that too.
Yep.
Nice and racist are not mutually exclusive.
Yep.
Right. And I'm a nice person and I want the world to be a better place. And I did that journey and came smack face to face with my own racism. And I've been thinking about it a lot since then. You decided you wanted to do this topic, white women's tears, and I even had to think, where and when have I done that? And I couldn't come up with a concrete example, but I'm sure I must have, because you think of conversations at work or in school or and just because of the kind of person I am, if I said something and I realized it hurt someone's feelings, like let's just pretend for a moment you and I are back in high school.
Yeah.
And this didn't happen, people. Let's pretend it did. let's pretend Raquel and I are having a conversation and I said something stupid about race. I don't know what I said, but I'm dumb sometimes. And so I said that. And Raquel said, oh, wow, that really hurt my feelings. That was kind of a racist remark you made. Because I'm a nice person, would have the potential to be like, oh no, I didn't mean to hurt your feelings, and then cry.
Yep.
Right. And then
Yep.
cry about it. And then,
Yeah.
and then what's Raquel doing? She's like, oh, Jennifer, it's okay.
Yep.
It's okay. You didn't mean to hurt my,
I
right?
absolutely would have done that.
We've all been in that situation, right? So to
mhm.
pretend like, but this learning is so deep. So the learning says to me, oh, that kind of puts me in the center of this my poor little white soul. And not to say I didn't have feelings about it. I don't want
Right.
to hurt Raquel's feelings. That hurts
Right.
me to hurt her.
Right.
I mean, it hurts me to hurt you.
Yeah.
Hopefully we've grown up since high school. You know what Robin DiAngelo said? If we are white women and we are in DEI discussions and other things, it is very important for us to know where, when, or why we cry.
Mhm.
Where, when, or why. Why are we crying? And where, when, or why we cry has political consequences.
Yes, it does.
It has political consequence. Well, I would say more than political consequences.
It
If
has
we're,
life consequences.
yeah,
Mhm.
where, when, and why are we crying? And I will say, from someone who sometimes has a trouble holding on to the tear well,
Same.
like, I might be trying really hard. I might know this now, and I might be in a situation where I'm trying, don't cry, don't cry. This is not appropriate.
Yeah, yeah.
And I might not be able to do it.
Yeah.
You
But
know,
in that situation, okay, nobody is saying don't express emotion. That's
right.
cool. Express that emotion. But
Decenter yourself.
decenter yourself.
This isn't about me. I'm crying, but this isn't about me.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not about you. Just, it's okay. And crying a little bit's not gonna kill you. A few tears will not kill you.
And I'm crying. I'm crying because I hurt you, but I want this to be about your hurt, not about my hurt over hurting you over,
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
it's kind of complicated. The other thing that I found in this research, and this wasn't through this podcast, but this was a hard fact for me to look at too, because after President Trump got elected, I was really stymied by how many white women voted for Trump, right? This one just stuck in, what do you always say? This one chapped my ass.
Yep.
That's the first thing that chapped my ass. I love it. And I kept asking myself, why did they do it? In prepping for this episode, I came across some articles that basically said the reason white women do this, and the reason white women use their tears manipulatively, is to align themselves with white men and to hold their position of power. Because they believe, they know they're women, and they know that we're below men in this hierarchy
in the patriarchy,
and this hierarchy of fucking bullshit.
Yep.
Right? They know that, but they're one step up if they align themselves with their white men.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. And honestly, just to be fair, I'm sure some women do this and they don't even realize that's what they're doing, because we all know it is very rare that people actually take the time to sit down and self-reflect and actually turn the mirror on themselves and actually look at their own shit and their own motivations. That is very rare. So I'm sure there are a lot of people who make decisions in that way and don't realize it, or maybe they think they're doing it for XYZ as opposed to upholding white supremacy because they are benefiting from it. They are benefiting from the privilege and the position.
You know, we had this really interesting thing happen when the girls and I went on vacation.
Mhm.
We went to Cancun recently, and god damn if the prices have not skyrocketed in Cancun, right? Everything's
Yikes.
super expensive. $500 at the grocery store.
Damn.
The girls and I are coming home, and one of my kids said to me, "Oh, things are so expensive here now." And we were kind of reminiscing about
Mhm.
years past when we went to Cancun and everything was so cheap. You could have such a great vacation for hardly any money. And then it kind of like dawned on me, and I said, well, there's two things to this. But the first thing is, no, this is a positive. This is a positive because if we want the world to equalize, if we don't want to be first world country and third world country, if we want to
Mhm.
be equal, then prices have to equalize. You can't go to
Yeah.
Mexico to have a cheap fucking vacation, right? We did that. We did
Yeah.
that. But if we want the world to equalize, we who have so much have to give up a little bit so that others can have more. That
Mhm.
was one aspect. We talked about that quite a bit. The sad part, though, is that it's not really the people benefiting, it's the big corporations.
Yeah.
It's like
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
grocery chain. But okay, so take that back to this conversation with white women. A lot of the white women that are, I'm not trying to be really careful of my language here, but making these mistakes
Mhm.
are white women with good intentions, right?
Mhm.
They want the world to be a better place. But when it comes to like giving up a little bit of something to equalize, okay, so I might have to knock down my own status a little to rise someone else. And that's a very, I mean, I think we're all in a culture that tells us there's not enough. There's not enough.
Yep.
If you're gonna have this big home, then someone else is gonna have nothing. Whereas, like, sometimes I think, why do we need these big homes with 14 bedrooms?
Mhm.
I don't have 14 bedrooms, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I have some people would say I have a modest home, but I have a lovely home, and
You do.
it's plenty for us, and we all have our own bedroom, and in a lot of places of the world, a lot of people sleep in one room. We have a plenty gorgeous, beautiful home.
Yeah.
If we want to equalize the world, what do we need to do? But at the same point, then there are people like the I don't think there can be an ethical millionaire because they have so much money and so much status and so much, they're hoarding at these high levels.
Mm.
Because we see that it's
Mhm.
hard to, plan for the future, put all your money in stocks and bonds and build this wealth and have all this wealth. Is wealth hoarding is what we teach as a culture.
Yeah.
Power hoarding,
Mhm.
that's white supremacy.
Yeah. Power over.
Power
Power over.
over, more
Yeah.
money than, more
Mhm.
status than,
Right.
where am I on the hierarchy?
Right. So one way that ties back to the tears and the manipulating of a situation is that you're trying to control the situation, whether it's the conversation or an interaction with a person of color, instead of just being in the conversation or being in the situation. Or if you don't need to be in the situation, just minding your own business, right? It's it's an opportunity to control something. So if you can shut down a conversation that is making you uncomfortable, of course you're going to do it because you don't want to feel uncomfortable. You don't want to have this conversation. So you're going to cry and it's going to shut it down instead of just going, whoa, okay, let me just, okay, yeah, I'm going to cry my tears, whatever, that's fine. But I'm not going to shut this down. I'm going to let this person talk to me. I'm going to listen and actually take this in. Or something happened that I didn't like, oh, I saw a black person at my gym. Okay, then just mind your own business. Why do you need to say that this black person was trying to do something to you and then get them arrested and or killed? It's a power play in either situation, whether it's in a shutting down a conversation or manipulating what happens to someone. It is a power play. One of the things that makes me very sad, I mean, yes, all the other stuff, like the bigger stuff, like Emmett Till, the guy in Central Park, any other number of Black people whose lives have been put in danger because a white woman cried or felt she could say that she felt threatened or whatever. Those make me very, very angry. And yes, they make me sad too. But what literally breaks my heart is when I am in conversation with someone or trying to be in conversation with someone, and not just someone, but with a white woman, and the tears start, and it's not, wow, I feel really bad about this, but let's continue the conversation. It's not that. It's, I'm uncomfortable, or, oh, I'm uncomfortable that it seems like you're quote unquote attacking this person verbally, whatever. Oh, and guess what? You didn't raise your voice, but that doesn't matter because I feel uncomfortable. Nah. So I'm gonna use my tears, or I'm gonna use my position on a pedestal to shut you down, or to protect this person that I deem that you are attacking. I'm gonna use a lot of air quotes here, people, for anybody who's just listening and not watching on YouTube. Using a lot of air quotes. And I say that this breaks my heart because that does actually, my heart does break when that has happened to me. When I brought up this topic to you and I said, hey, let's do a show about this, I just thought this will be an interesting topic. It'll be a good conversation, and it's not exactly the most comfortable conversation to have, but it's one of the reasons why we do the show. But as I was getting ready for it, a situation that happened to me recently popped into my head. And I was like, oh, I get it. It's not just that I was with a group of friends, and I'm pretty sure most of them are not going to listen to this episode. So, whatever, they may know, whatever they may not, doesn't matter, because the conversation's not going to happen anyway. Where group of friends, and there's one person in the friend group, one woman who she's not originally from the US, but she's lived here for like 30 years, right? And on numerous occasions has said things that just literally make me stop in my tracks, because I'm like, wow, you should know better. You've lived here long enough now. You should know better than this. But half the time I don't, 90% of the time I don't say anything.
Mm-hmm.
But this was a conversation we were all taking part in. I was the only person of color taking part in the conversation. There was another woman of color at the table, but I don't think she was taking part in the conversation. And if she was, and I don't remember, my apologies, because I was a little traumatized by this. Talking about stuff having to do with kind of skirting around the idea of race and talking about things. And this is a group of people that I've known for a very long time. The relationships and the group have evolved and changed in whatever over time. How I feel I fit in the group has changed over time, and I've been very sad about it for a long time. And I realized that this is partly why. So we're having the conversation, and the woman who's lived here for easily 30 years made a comment, and I just said, come on, you have lived here long enough to know. And person over here jumps in, hey, no, protecting this other woman. I'm like, wait a minute, we're having a conversation. I did not yell. I did not swear. I did not lunge across the table. We're having a conversation. Person over here says to me, and I don't think this person meant this in a bad way, but was like, hey, you're being very judgmental. And I was like, what about me? Why am I being attacked? How about, can we not hold her accountable to know more than she does. And I'm not being rude. I'm literally saying, I'm holding you to a higher standard because I would think you would hold yourself to a higher standard than what you're clearly portraying at this point. But I'm the one who's told I'm being judgmental and, hey, I need to protect so and so. So I do what I do all the time. I just shut down and we go, okay, I just shut down. The conversation that could have happened will never, ever happen in that group. And that breaks my heart because that limits where those friendships can go.
Right. Raquel, I know you shut down, and I'm sorry about that. Truly. But
Thank you.
I am very fucking proud of you. Because, not for the shutdown part, to be clear, but because you recognize that that was not fucking right and that your friends did not have your back. And the Raquel that I met I knew you before that, but the Raquel I reunited with 3 years ago to start this podcast would have given every excuse for those women. She would have been like, oh, it's okay. She didn't mean anything by it. Doesn't matter if she meant anything by it. What matters is that, what did you say to her? You said
that she should know. Like, come on,
yes.
you've been here long enough. You should understand this.
Yeah.
And this isn't somebody who's
no
intellectually stunted.
You were right. You were correct. You were saying what was right. You were being authentic. You were not being rude. You were not being loud. And even if you were being a little rude and a little loud, that comment kind of provoked that a little bit, but you didn't. I am proud of you because you know.
Yeah.
You know. And I think in the past you would have made excuses for them.
And you're completely right. And I have.
And that's what back to this podcast again. So Black Like Me, Dr. Alex Gee, I listen to the podcast. You listen to the podcast.
Yep.
Two things. One, I think it's really important to listen to Black people talking about this. Because for me, it was a perspective that I don't have.
Yeah.
It was enlightening. Number two, he talked a lot about progressive people being one of the biggest problems. Because, okay, yes, we're with these people who are, and I'm including myself in this, where we're thinking, we're working on it. And I think this is the issue that I was having before my journey was that, oh, I'm anti-racist. I can't be a racist person, right? I'm working really hard. I don't do those things. This is other people. We need to work on it with other people. Other people need to be woken up or whatever, right? It's other people's problem.
Yeah.
It's easy to say it's someone else's problem. It's very difficult to say, oh, I said that thing. I didn't realize. Let me think about that. Why was that racist? Where did that come from? When was I taught that? Of course, I'm a fish that swims in this water. Of course, I was taught that. I'm not evil, but let's get it out. Let's get it out.
And how does what I said or didn't let someone else say or whatever, how does that action affect the other person?
Yes.
What is the impact of what I said or did? Not the intention, because some people do, but like you're saying, you can be progressive and liberal and all these things and want the world to be amazing and everybody be equal. And you may not intend for something to be hurtful.
And it still is.
But the impact was that it was. Not just.
And then listen.
Exactly.
And then listen to that person who's telling you that so that, number one, so that you can apologize, right? You can listen, you can hear it, you can apologize. You can say, oh my gosh, you're right. I'm sorry I did that. That was terrible. That was
Yeah.
fucked up. That was stupid of me. I wasn't thinking. I didn't think
Yeah.
about it that way before. Oh, this is new information to me.
Yeah. So you can learn.
Right.
You can grow as a human being.
And then number two, maybe you don't keep doing that all over the place to all sorts of people.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe we stop
Mm-hmm.
it today or
Mm-hmm.
tomorrow. We've got some grace around this, but
Yeah. Yeah. And honestly, not every person of color who's trying to have that conversation is going to shut down the way that I did. They may actually say something hurtful, and your feelings really actually might get hurt.
Raquel, in your whole friend group, nobody grabbed your back.
No, no.
I think
There was, well, one, the other woman who of color who was in the group did later come to me and say, hey, I'm sorry. You shouldn't have had to go through that. And I was like, I get it. And she was like, I'm sorry I didn't say anything. I'm like, that's cool. It's not, I didn't expect her to have to be like, oh, women of color unite. Like I didn't.
but this is just like when we're saying that when we're fighting for our feminist rights, that we need men to be with us. Black women need white women to be with them. It isn't even an equal responsibility at this point. It's the onus is actually on us. It's actually on us to educate ourselves. We can ask for help in that. We can pay for help in that. We can read. We can ask questions. We can study. We can, there's lots of things we can do, but it's, and we can reflect and we can go on mushroom journeys and learn about our own racism or whatever. If we want the world to change, we have to change. One of the things I read is that white feminism betrays women of color. Do you think that's true?
I do.
And how so?
I really do. One of the ways that it happens is thinking that let's get equality. Let's just focus on the palatable part of feminism. Let's just focus on white women getting these rights. Women of color, we'll get to you in a minute. Hold on, just wait your turn, right? Wait your turn.
So it's still a hierarchy structure then.
Well, yeah. I mean, well, think about it. The suffrage movement, women getting the right to vote. It was supposed to be there were Black women involved in the suffrage movement, but white women were like, we're worried about us first. We'll get y'all later. Let's chill, because it was like, oh, if Black women get the right to vote, then so will Black men, and we can't have that. So hold on, we're just gonna get the vote for white women. And and then many decades later, then Black people get the right to vote. And that still happens in feminism. It was happening in every wave of feminism up to and including now. One of the ways that this shows up is when people don't realize the intersectionality of feminism, that it's not just, oh, women need to be able to do blah, 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 blah. But yeah, guess what? But for a woman of color, all these other issues have to be addressed. All these, not peripheral, all these other issues in her orbit have to be addressed as well, not just making the same pay, but also being able to have affordable healthcare, affordable childcare, a safe place to live, grocery stores that are easily accessible, right, that are in the neighborhood, having transportation,
living in a good neighborhood.
Exactly.
I did the air quotes, people. The good neighborhood. What does a good neighborhood mean? I want to move my kids to a good neighborhood.
Yeah, I want to move my kids to the good school.
What's the good school?
How about we make all the schools good, regardless of what the neighborhood looks like or what the demographic?
Wouldn't it be great if every neighborhood had a good school? Every neighborhood had a grocery store that had vegetables.
Yeah.
At a decent price.
Yeah. Yeah, wouldn't that be great? It's funny. This is a quote from Robin DiAngelo from this episode of Black Like Me that we keep referencing. And don't worry, people, I'm going to put a link to that episode in the show notes. Robin DiAngelo says, having Black friends is not an accountability practice.
Ah, yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
I loved that quote so much.
Yeah. It's like, that's not enough. That is not enough to just be able to say, hey, there's my Black friend. That is not enough.
Yeah.
Listen to us. Learn from us, for God's sake.
There was a lot packed into that episode.
Yeah. Oh my God. That episode is amazing. That should be required listening.
I think I'm actually going to start listening to his podcast in general.
I am too.
Because she was a good guest. And her work is great. And she's still a white person. I think one of the reasons why I haven't read that book is it just seemed to me like at the time when all the DEI work it was after the murder of George Floyd and all the DEI stuff was coming out of the woodwork again. And it's the time when you started your book club and we jumped on the podcast wagon, and because it motivates people for change. But she's still a white woman, even though she's highly educated. So I'm not dissing her. I thought the conversation was amazing. But her book is a top seller. And then you see so many Black women working in DEI and struggling, writing books and struggling to get the book out there. And I'm not trying to discount her work. Her work is good.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But I'm saying we still see the discrepancy in that.
Yep.
I really do respect a lot of what she had to say. And I still felt a little uncomfortable with her being the expert in this. And I really loved his line of conversation around it, his questions, his reflection of his own neighborhood and how it was full of people who are, he didn't use the word liberal. He said he didn't want to use liberal because he didn't want to confuse Democrats and Republicans. He said it was progressives. He said he had the most, I will not forget this, the most trouble with his progressive friends because they would question his language choices. They're like, well, you're a successful Black man. Why are you complaining? I mean, I'm paraphrasing. That isn't exactly what he said, but it's along those lines.
Yeah.
Your kids went to private school. They're doing well. They're educated. What are you complaining about?
Yeah. Why do you care?
Racism doesn't exist for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And again, I was paraphrasing. That is not exactly what was said. That also is deflection from what is the real conversation here. And I think what I learned in researching this is that really white people are not experts in this. We're not the experts. We can observe, we can be part of the conversation. Hopefully we're adding some sort of support and love and help, but we have to listen to Black people.
Yeah. Yeah.
We do.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I've always been that great at doing that.
Just the fact that you are saying that, hey, maybe I haven't always been good at that. That's a huge leap. And there's a lot of people who aren't going to make that leap, who aren't going to admit that, or maybe admit isn't even the right word. Maybe they don't even realize that. Yeah, it is possible for these changes to happen, but people have to, you have to be willing to sit with the discomfort and realize you don't know everything.
And also, I think that there can sometimes be a time element. So, you can have a difficult conversation. Maybe you do make a mistake. Maybe you cry. Maybe you say something inappropriate. Maybe you get defensive. I could see myself getting really defensive, right?
Yeah, same.
But then there's some time. You go home, you reflect, you think about what happened, and then you're like, oh, maybe I was kind of in the wrong. You can do repair work. You can, you can, with consent, because I think you have to ask to have that conversation.
Yeah.
So back to our high school thing, I could say, hey, Raquel, I went home and I thought about things. Are you available to talk about what happened between us? And when would be a good time to do that for you? I think we are also in the society in such a rush that we have a difficult conversation and it has to be fixed right now, today.
Yep.
And sometimes there is a reflection moment that needs to happen.
Mhm.
Maybe several moments, maybe
Mhm.
you know, maybe you have to go home and reflect and talk to your advisors, talk to the people you trust and say, I think I fucked up
Yeah.
and I don't know what to do about it.
And it's okay to go to the person that you think you fucked up with and go, hey, I think I fucked up here. It's okay to say that. Admit it. It's fine. We all fuck up.
Yeah.
Always. Always.
But that's also, you know, we got into this conversation again about people who are really working on this, but women who are using these tears on purpose
Mhm.
are probably never going to have that conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. Sadly, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And honestly, there's always going to be people who are not going to change, who are
Yeah.
never going to do the self-reflection, or maybe they'll do the self-reflection and go, fuck it, I like me as I am, and then they just aren't going to change.
Again, to go back to that podcast again that we listened to,
Mhm.
I remember them saying, how did they put it? I don't want to mess this up. That with white supremacy, white people inherently believe that they are superior to Black people.
Mhm.
That there is that belief system, that we grow up with that message around us telling
Mhm.
us that.
Mhm.
That's a hard pill to swallow.
Mhm.
And, you know, I'm going to have to sit with that for a while. But inherently, if we believe that, is there true equity in our friendship? It's a tough question, isn't it?
I would say no, but there could be. Like the work would have to be done,
Mm-hmm.
right? Yeah. The work of doing the inner reflection, you know, looking at your own shit. The work of listening to people who are different from you and actually listening to what they're saying and trying to learn from it, but also doing your own education as well, like not expecting that friend who's different from you to educate you. I think it is possible. I mean, I think that is one way that friendships and relationships grow and develop and become stronger, is that you continue to learn from and work with the other person, and you learn from the way that you react with the other
Mm-hmm.
person. I mean, that's pretty much kind of how any relationship actually grows and develops.
Good
And
point.
I think that's one of the things that has made me so sad about, you know, that particular group, is that that reflection wasn't happening on their end.
At least not right then and there.
Right. Right.
And you don't believe it will happen.
I don't, part of me thinks, no, it's not gonna happen. It's not. But there's a part of me that's very hopeful that it will. But even with all of this hopeful optimism, I mean, you know, am I gonna sit around and wait for it? No. I mean, if it happens, great, but am I gonna wait for it? No. Am I going to not be friends with these people anymore? Well, no. Are those friendships at a distance now that I didn't think they were before? Yeah, there's a
Yeah.
distance there now. There's a distance.
Yeah.
And that's what I was feeling before, even before the conversation. I was feeling that before, but I couldn't put my finger on what it was.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And we live in I mean, I don't know about other people, but I live in a pretty segregated society. Again, on the podcast, she said, look at the pictures of your wedding. Now,
Yeah.
that point, my parents on purpose moved us into a biracial neighborhood because we live in segregated neighborhoods for the most part.
Yep.
That is one of the issues that we face.
Yeah. But as they said in that episode, again, we're not telling you to pick up and move to a new neighborhood.
Right.
You can find ways to meet and talk to people who are different from you.
Yes, you can.
It is possible, people, right? Like, just put your big girl panties on. You can do it. You can figure it out. Do some reading, educate yourself. Don't go say, like, find a Black person to be like, hey, can you be my teacher and teach me about all the Black people? No.
You be my Black girlfriend. Now we're
No.
getting into fetishes.
Yeah, I know exactly. That's a whole
other
episode.
A whole other episode.
God. Yes, this is a heavy topic, but y'all, we can learn from it. I don't want people to listen to this and be like, well,
I suck.
Raquel just thinks everybody's awful and I suck and I'm the worst and blah, blah, blah. No, people, come on. Just do a little self-reflection. Read some stuff. Talk to people. Broaden your world a little bit. Open your mind a little. Learn something. Nothing hard.
This idea is kind of new for me. So I'm working my thoughts through while we're talking. Tapping into this idea of I am white, therefore I'm a racist. I'm also anti-racist, I want you to know. But I am white, therefore I'm a racist is almost, because I'm the fish that's swimming in the water, that's racist water.
And I just want to reiterate, sorry to interrupt you, but I just want to reiterate, people, this is what Rob and DiAngelo said in the episode. So it's not like I'm sitting here going, Jennifer is white, thus Jennifer is a racist. So please.
I'm the one that's saying that now because I listened to that episode and I thought it rang true to me.
Okay.
Is all I'm saying. And so I'm sitting with this idea, I am white, therefore I am racist. And I know that a lot of the people that I know who are white are going to be screaming, oh, okay, whatever. I'm talking about me. I'm sitting with this idea and it's almost freeing a little bit. And I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Because if I think I'm progressive and I think I'm anti-racist and that I'm not racist at all, then I have some fear of making mistakes. Like if I make a mistake, I'm subhuman or something. I don't know. But if I'm racist and I make a mistake, it's because I'm swimming in the water and I can learn and I can get that pollutant out of my water.
Yep.
I can learn and I can be better. I can be a better human than I am today. Yep. But if I denounce all of that and say, no, I am not, I am here, I am anti-racist with no racist thoughts that ever occurs through my body, then I have no room to examine the mistakes that I will inevitably make, the growth, my growth potential. It's freeing because it says, this was the air I was breathing. And therefore it is my job to analyze it, but therefore I can purge it. I can keep working. And I don't think anyone will ever get to the point where they're completely free of biases. Like that's like,
no, not ever.
Like, how could we ever get to that point? But at the same, we can always grow to be better humans and treat people better. And I think one of my things that I need to be, for me, this is just my reflection. I think I need to be a better listener. Instead of trying to be the fixer or the solver or the person who's going to make it all better or try to arrange things to make everyone happy because I'm a people pleaser, just really listening better without trying to come up with a solution, just for listening, for understanding, listening to change my insides. I don't know.
No, that totally makes sense. And honestly, you may have that same epiphany again, because guess what? We continue to learn. We don't get to a point where, yep, I've learned everything there is to learn. I'm done now. That's it. Never going to learn another. There's nothing else left for me to learn. Nobody gets to that point. That point does not exist.
Right.
So we continue to learn, and we might have the same epiphany later, but it's a little different because we're at a different point in our lives and we've learned some other stuff. So we see the epiphany differently, or we make a different mistake that we didn't make before. We're like, oh shit, I made a mistake. Well, let me learn from it this way.
What do you want to say about white women's tears that you didn't get a chance to say?
It's not about you. It's not about you. Fine, cry your tears. Fine, that's fine. Okay. I mean, we all know I cry all the time. I'm not going to tell somebody don't cry, because some people just cannot control it. Me. But if you find yourself in a conversation with somebody of color, different from you, whatever, and they're trying to tell you something that maybe you did wrong or that society has done wrong, fine, cry your tears, feel sad, do whatever. I don't care. But don't shut that conversation down. Do everything in your power, with the other person's consent, of course. Don't badger somebody into continuing to talk to you if they're like, I'm out. But do what you can to let that conversation continue. Even if you have to say, you know what, I'm sorry, I know I'm crying, but look, hey, this isn't about me. Okay. So look, I'm just crying because of whatever. So please keep talking. I want to hear more. If you have to say that, fine, say it. But do not let your tears be the tool to shut a conversation down. And if you're in a conversation with somebody and you start crying and they're just like, okay, fine, and they just shut down, think about it. Think about why that person just did that. And then go, oh shit, did I just shut that down? Because maybe you did. Because maybe that person doesn't feel comfortable saying much more yet at that point. Think about that. But you know what? It's not, you are going to fuck up. We all are. Yeah, it's okay. You will hopefully learn from it, but you will not die. You will fuck up. Just go ahead and get ready for it. It's gonna happen. What matters is how you act after you fuck up. Yeah.
By the way, we're friends.
We are friends. We are friends.
You're actually one of my best friends.
I feel the same way about you. I really do. I really do. And
yeah, and you know why? Because we talk every week.
We do.
We talk every single week.
Absolutely. And we have the hard conversations.
Yeah.
And you're a good person. You have a very good heart. And I know that about you.
And you're a good person and you have a very good heart. And I know that about you.
Thank you.
It's like looking in a mirror.
Thank you for having this conversation with me, Jennifer.
Yeah, it was a good one. There's a lot to unpack in that. There's more. We could have said
so much more.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot.
Yeah, and I want to thank our listeners, or viewers who are watching on YouTube. Thank you for staying to the end. Maybe share the episode with some of your friends and have a conversation with them and see where it goes. Thanks everyone for listening today. We will be back with more Madness Cafe next week. You can find us on Instagram at Madness Cafe Podcast or email us at madnesscafepodcast@gmail.com. Bye.